Does Milwaukee have a brain drain going on? Statistics show the numbers of educated young people leaving both the city and the state are higher than the national average. A Milwaukee alderman hopes to reverse this trend. Cavalier Johnson wants to form a millennial task force to study how to attract and keep younger people. The Common Council will vote on this idea Tuesday, and Alderman Johnson joins us now here on Upfront. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Adrian. I appreciate it.
Why do you think this task force is necessary?
I think it's important for a number of reasons. We see a problem in Milwaukee and across the state, really, in the loss of young people. And young people bring energy and dynamism to communities, and we want to make sure that we're working to keep those young people who are here and attract other young people from across the country to come here because they add to communities.
And just for clarification, so for our purposes, talking about millennials, we mean people who are the ages 25 to 34. So how would you find the members of this task force?
Sure. So we did a lot of legwork before even introducing this legislation. So we worked with a number of youth-serving organizations and places that tend to hire or look to hire millennials into their workforce. So everybody from Northwestern Mutual to Milwaukee has shown tremendous interest in this. And so it was pretty easy pickings to look at, the groups that are out there serving young people, millennials in particular, in order to get them to sign up on this, because this is something that they all are interested in as well.
Why should people care about keeping millennials in the city and in the state?
Because, as I said earlier, the millennials and younger people, they add energy, they add dynamism, they're entrepreneurial, they're more conscious about social issues, they're more conscious about economic issues and environmental issues. And as we look forward to getting Milwaukee to the midpoint of the 21st century, it's important to have the voices of millennials at the table. So as the resident millennial on the city council, I thought it's important to make sure that I use my position to step up and see what we can do to address some of these things to keep millennials here in Milwaukee.
In your research so far, what are you hearing about why they're leaving? I know that's part of what the task force will do, but what are some of your ideas right now?
Yeah, some of the reasons are weather related, which of course, we can't control that.
No.
I think, if they were to visit and have an impression of us in the summertime when all the festivals are going on, they'd be more likely to stay. But then we have 6 months of winter, so that becomes difficult. I was talking to my sister recently who actually moved to Dallas about 2 years ago, and she talked about the perception of violence here versus the perception of violence in other places, including the place where she lives now. The way that it's portrayed via social media or even in the news media overall has an effect on the way that people perceive a community. And so some of those things are things that affect the reasons why people decide to come or decide to leave. There are a number of issues as well, amenities like parks and trails and access to water and a dynamic downtown area and neighborhoods too. Those are all things we're looking to look at here in this task force.
So you don't think it's necessarily the crime, you think it's the perception of the crime?
I think it's the perception of the crime. I think that large cities across the country have issues. Milwaukee is no different in that. But the way that some of the things are covered here versus how they're covered in other places, I think has a negative impact on people's feelings about the place where they live. So that's not to say that there are not issues. There certainly are issues, and we're actively working to pursue those issues and work on them to make our city a safer city. But there's so many more positive stories that happen in Milwaukee every single day than the ones that people hear about necessarily every night.
It's changed a lot in the last few years. I mean, if you look at Fiserv Forum and the downtown area and adding the streetcar, there are a lot of changes that I think people would think would be good for millennials.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Milwaukee has had a tremendous renaissance in the downtown area, and we're actively working to make sure that that expands out into the neighborhoods as well, because the city is more than its downtown, right? The vast majority of people, including millennials, I think, live in the neighborhoods, and so we need to make sure that the neighborhoods are attractive places for those people to live. And have some sort of civic and entertainment destinations in as well. And so we're actively working to do that. So it's not just downtown, it has to be in the neighborhoods too. And that's, I think, one of the things that the task force is going to look at as well.
And you think the Common Council will sign off on this week?
I am as confident as I can be without having a crystal ball and knowing for sure that's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Pretty sure they'll sign off.
Okay, Alderman Johnson, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the Wisconsin county that says it's a Second Amendment sanctuary.